The city of New York never really sleeps. It's a machine that runs on ambition, money, and secrets. In the heart of Manhattan stood the Clarendon, a sleek, upscale hotel known for its luxurious suites, five-star service, and the kind of privacy that attracted celebrities, foreign dignitaries, and billionaires alike. The staff, sharply dressed and always smiling, moved like quiet shadows through the hallways, trained to observe everything but speak of nothing. Among them was Alana, a 27-year-old housekeeper with dreams bigger than her paycheck. She was smart, beautiful in an understated way, and possessed the kind of street-smart grit that only New York could forge. Life hadn't been kind to her. Raised in the Bronx, she had taken care of her sick mother for years and worked multiple jobs to make ends meet. But Alana had one rule: never mix business with pleasure. That rule was broken one sultry night in July. She was assigned the penthouse suite on the 47th floor, a booking made under the name Mr. Charles Brandt. The staff whispered about him: tech billionaire, sharp as a whip, always traveling, never with the same woman twice. The kind of man who could tip $$1000 without blinking, or ruin you with one phone call. Alana knocked before entering, assuming the guest was out as usual. But as she turned the keycard and walked in, she found Charles shirtless, standing by the minibar. Instead of shouting or calling security, he smirked and said, "I didn't expect room service to be this beautiful." She rolled her eyes and tried to remain professional. "Sorry, sir. I thought you were out." "No harm done," he replied, his voice smooth like whiskey. "You can clean while I finish my drink. Don't worry, I'm harmless." That night, something shifted. Maybe it was the drink he offered her before she left, or the way he spoke to her like she wasn't invisible. They talked, laughed. He listened to her stories like they mattered. And before either of them realized it, one drink became two, then three. And the next thing she knew, her body was tangled in his under the silk sheets of the penthouse bed. It was supposed to be just one night. One stupid, luxurious, unforgettable night. By morning, Charles was gone. A crisp envelope sat on the pillow. Inside, $5,000 in cash and a note, asterisk, for the beautiful woman who gave me a rare night of peace. Thank you, C. Asterisk, no phone number. No promise. Just money and memory. Alana stared at the envelope. Part of her wanted to cry. Another part wanted to scream. But she took the money and shoved it deep in her purse. She never told anyone. She resumed work like nothing happened. And for a few weeks, life continued, until her period didn't come. Panic set in. She bought one test. Then another. Then a third. All of them screamed the same truth in bright blue lines. She was pregnant. She remembered clearly, they had used protection. She wasn't stupid. But the memory replayed over and over in her mind. Charles tossing the used condom into the bathroom trash, and walking away to pour himself another drink. That's when the idea first slithered into her brain. Insane. Immoral. Risky. But not impossible. The next morning, before housekeeping did their rounds, she used her spare key and returned to the suite. The room was untouched since Charles had checked out. She went to the trash bin, and there it was. She retrieved the condom carefully. It felt like a crime, like something no sane woman would ever do. But desperation is a powerful drug. And Charles Brandt was a billionaire. Alana wasn't naive. She didn't expect love. But she saw something bigger. A future. A child who'd never have to grow up counting coins or watching a mother cough her lungs out because Medicaid wouldn't cover treatment. She did her research. Knew the risks. She was healthy, young, and ovulating. The odds weren't high, but they weren't zero either. She did it that same day. And 3 weeks later, the pregnancy test confirmed what she hadn't dared hope for. It worked. Alana told no one. She quit her job at the hotel and moved to a quieter borough, living modestly with the money Charles had left behind. As her belly grew, so did her resolve. She would raise this child. Alone, if she had to. But not forever. One day, the truth would come out. One day, Charles Brandt would know that his night of peace came with a lifetime of consequences. But for now, she waited and prepared. Years passed. Alana's son, Jace, grew up in a quiet part of Queens. far away from the glamorous skyline of Manhattan and the penthouse where his life had begun. From a young age, Jace had a sharp mind and a quiet intensity that reminded Alana of only one person. He didn't just look like Charles Brandt, he moved like him, thought like him. That same calculating gaze, that same air of quiet command, even as a child. Alana never told him the full truth. She said his father was a man who lived far away. She made sure he never wanted for food, clothes, or affection. She worked remotely, did online certifications, built a small but stable graphic design business from home. The $5,000 from Charles had long since run out, but she never asked for help. Not until now. Jace was 7 when he first asked, "Mom, why don't I have a dad like the other kids?" Alana blinked hard, then smiled. Because some dads are just not ready to be dads. "But I've got you. And you've got me. That's enough, right?" He nodded. But the question didn't go away. Eventually, stories started to surface. Articles, headlines, interviews. Charles Brandt was everywhere. Tech genius turned media darling. By now, he was in his early 40s, still single, still handsome, and even richer than before. One of his companies had gone public, and he was being called the Steve Jobs of AI. Alana couldn't escape him, even if she tried. His face popped up in magazines, morning shows, billboards, even subway ads. That's when the anger began to fester. Not just for Alana, but for Jace too. By the time he turned 9, strangers were stopping her in public. "Wow, your son looks like that tech guy." Even the school secretary mentioned it once. It wasn't just a resemblance. It was uncanny. Alana tried to ignore it. For as long as she could. But one rainy afternoon, as Jace sat beside her watching a television interview with Charles speaking at a tech conference, he said with painful honesty, "Mom, I think that man is my dad." And just like that, everything she had been bottling up cracked. She got a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a good one. A smart, tough-as-nails family law expert who had dealt with rich, slippery men before. At first, the idea sounded ridiculous even to her. There was no marriage, no relationship, no signed acknowledgement. Just one woman's word against the billionaire king of Manhattan. But then, the photos. The resemblance. The timing. The financial records showing her employment at the Clarendon. Witnesses from the hotel who remembered her. A few of the old staff who knew about that infamous July weekend and the generous tip left behind. It was enough to open a case. The lawsuit hit the media like a lightning bolt. Woman claims billionaire Charles Brandt fathered her child after secret hotel encounter. Files for $12 million in back child support. Charles Brandt's legal team moved quickly. Press conferences, public denials, carefully worded statements. Mr. Brandt does not know this woman. This is a baseless attempt to exploit a powerful man. There is no relationship between Mr. Brandt and this child. He didn't just deny paternity, he made it sound absurd. But not everyone bought it. Photos of Jace began to circulate, side-by-side comparisons with Charles as a boy. The internet did what it always does. Dug up everything, compared every angle, every feature. The resemblance was so startling that even late-night comedians joked, Brandt might want to lawyer up before that kid takes his seat in the boardroom. The public started choosing sides. Some saw Alana as a gold digger. Others saw a woman fighting for justice. But no one, not even Brandt's cold-faced lawyers, could deny what was becoming clearer with each passing day. This boy looked exactly like the man who swore he'd never met his mother. The court hearings began behind closed doors. Alana sat silently in the courtroom, dressed modestly, with Jace seated beside her in a blazer too big for his narrow shoulders. Charles Brandt sat at the opposite table, flanked by lawyers, wearing a sleek navy suit and a face like stone. He never looked at her. But the judge did. And the pressure kept building. Jace, now 10, didn't understand all the legal jargon. But he felt it. The weight. The silence. The disbelief. And he felt the burn of watching a man who looked like him, his mirror, sit there and act like he didn't exist. Still, no DNA test had been ordered. Not yet. It was just Alana's word, and a growing mountain of circumstantial proof. But truth, like water, always finds a way to rise. And soon, very soon, Everything was about to come. The court battle raged on for weeks. Cameras followed Alana as she walked into the courthouse each morning, hand in hand with Jace, who had quickly become a public sensation. Social media buzzed with posts defending the boy's right to be acknowledged, while others insisted it was all a fabricated scam. Through it all, Alana held her head high, not because she wanted fame, but because she was fighting for her son's truth. The judge, growing tired of the back and forth and the constant media circus, finally made the inevitable call. A DNA test was ordered. Charles Brandt's lawyers filed motions to delay it. They tried everything: technicalities, paperwork errors, challenges to jurisdiction. But the judge was unmoved. The test was scheduled, and both Charles and Jace were required to appear. The day of the test was eerily silent. Alana barely slept the night before. Jace was unusually quiet, eyes cast down, twirling the sleeves of his hoodie nervously. Charles, escorted by his security detail, sat cold and stoic in the sterile clinic room. No one spoke. The swabs were taken. Quick. Clinical. Undeniable. The results came 5 days later. There was no drama in the way the judge delivered the results. Just simple, clear, damning words. Probability of paternity: 99.997%. Charles Brandt is the biological father of the child. Silence fell in the courtroom. Alana's eyes stung with tears, but she didn't cry. Not yet. She turned to Jace, whose lips parted slowly, trying to absorb what the papers had just confirmed. Charles's face, so famously composed in boardrooms and interviews, wavered for the first time. His lips pressed into a hard line, and for a second, a flicker of something broke through the mask. He looked at the boy. And the boy looked back. Later that week, Charles was ordered to pay $12.4 million in back child support, legal fees, and interest, an amount calculated based on his billionaire status and the years he had ignored the child he unknowingly fathered. But something unexpected happened after that. Charles started showing up. At first, it was awkward. A few tense lunches, brief phone calls. He asked questions. Listened. Then, surprisingly, he invited Jace to a tech showcase. And a Knicks game. Then a weekend at his estate in the Hamptons. Jace was cautious at first. But he liked gadgets. And puzzles. And asking big, philosophical questions. And Charles, whether he liked it or not, found himself growing fond of this boy. Not just out of obligation, but out of something deeper. Something that unnerved him: love. And Alana, she watched it all with quiet disbelief. He apologized. He said it plainly, directly, the way she remembered he always did: "I was wrong. I shouldn't have denied him. And I shouldn't have walked away from you that morning. I was a coward." They weren't lovers anymore. They weren't even friends. But something started to rebuild itself, through shared parenting, through moments that blurred the line between duty and desire. Charles began calling. Then texting. Then asking her to dinner, not for legal matters, but just to talk. Alana resisted. She didn't trust easily. But over time, she saw a version of him that had evolved, a man humbled by reality, softened by his own bloodline. One winter evening, 2 years after the court case, Charles invited her and Jace to a Christmas charity gala. Alana wore a deep green dress, her hair swept up, and for the first time in a long time, she felt like a woman, not just a mother, or a fighter, or a forgotten memory. After the gala, under the quiet shimmer of city lights, Charles took her aside and said, "I don't want to keep pretending that what we had was just a night. It wasn't. I see it now." He knelt, not with the grandeur of a movie scene, but with the rawness of a man finally owning his truth, and asked her to marry him. Alana didn't say yes immediately. She made him work for it. But one spring morning, on the same terrace of the Clarendon Hotel where they had first spoken, they exchanged vows in a small private ceremony. No cameras. No tabloids. Just them, Jace standing between them with a smile as wide as the Hudson. They built a new life. One not of scandal, but of second chances. Alana co-founded a tech education non-profit for single mothers. Charles shifted from being a lone wolf CEO to a family man, something he never imagined himself becoming. And Jace, bright and curious, grew up in a world where truth had been buried and fought for, but eventually won. He always knew the story of how he came to be wasn't traditional. But he also knew this: he was loved, deeply and fully. And as for Alana, she had once taken a desperate chance in a lonely hotel room. Now, she was building a legacy with a man who had once been a mistake, but became the love of her life.